Greetings sailors and welcome to a bit of live recorded work in progress Swedish / pan-European destroyer action, because I have spectacularly failed at getting any decent replays so far, and also my brain's just been a bit mushy, and so this just requires less brain power, but also the results are a little more unpredictable because of course I'm recording it live. So we've got 4 ships at the moment for testing. We've got the Västerås, the Öland, the Holland and the Småland, and of those the Småland is the premium or free XP or whatever this is going to be available for. It's basically a premium version of the Holland, except the torpedoes are a bit different. Now, talking of torpedoes, that's definitely one of the defining features, as you've probably seen elsewhere. I tend to refer to German torpedoes as German ticklers because they don't do a lot of damage. These do even less, but they are faster. So I guess we can call them Swedish ticklers? Yeah, that might be the video title right there. Either that or some kind of Game of Thrones reference, because, you know, it's the Västerås. Yeah, so yeah, they're fast, they have good range, but they don't do a lot of damage. Tier 6, 10 kilometers, it's good. 7,500 damage, not so good. You do at least get a fast reload though, and I think the actual torp detection is that's completely standard, 1.4 kilometers, so nothing special there. And then you get up to the tier 10, which has its bonkers 86 knots torpedoes, 15 kilometers, but only 10,700 damage. And as you can see, that's a rather longer reload, but you do also have 2 quintuple launchers, so that's why it's a rather longer reload. The other major gimmick is no smoke. Instead, they have a rather weak heel. It's not terribly strong at all. It will keep you alive a bit longer, but given that these do not have the speed of the French gunboats, I'm in two minds about it. I mean, I don't particularly hugely enjoy the French destroyers as it is, but that's mainly because of carriers, and these have the same problem in that although the AA isn't terrible, especially the tier 10s have actually pretty good AA, but you get to the tier 6 and the tier 8, and it's rather less effective. And I've had at least one game already where I was the only destroyer, and anyone that's ever been in a French destroyer in a match where they were the only destroyer, and there was a, you know, they were in a tier 6, what's the regular one for the tier 6 French destroyer? Like, I can't remember now, but yeah, they're in their tier 6, they're the only destroyer on the team, and there's a tier 8 carrier in play, and I had that exact scenario, except it was this ship, and it wasn't very fun because the carrier just kept coming after me with rocket plane after rocket plane. So yeah, but one thing they don't share, however, is the surface detection. They are all tending to have rather decent surface detection. Nothing amazing though, they're not going to out sneak anybody, but it's more than good enough to make the torpedo drops. So anyway, that's the very short rundown, which is something I would have talked about over the actual replay itself had I been able to get a good replay so far, but no. As I said, my brain has the processing power of a bowl of limp noodles at the moment, so, you know, this is vaguely easier, but at the same time it might end up being a completely terrible match, and that's always the peril of recording live. I tend to pick out replays that give a fair shake to the ship, although if it's exceptional in some way, like with the recent California video where I pointed out that it really was exceptional matchmaking and exceptional in terms of allies being very opponents being very obliging, yeah, it didn't really kind of show the ship in its native state, as it were. It wasn't really an average experience at all of the California. So I do try and curate the replays I pick for my preview videos quite carefully. But that one ended up just being more a replay of that ship that was a particularly good game for that ship, but wasn't really representative at all. My experience of these so far has been okay though, but like the French, the lack of smoke in terms of dealing with carriers is a definite annoyance, although I'm hoping to avoid that at this time of night. This matchmaking is taking a while though. But the rest of the time, they're okay. I mean, in terms of their torpedo capabilities, yeah, they're fast, but I still haven't landed that many overall so far. Any ship where your primary damage output is torpedoes is always going to be a really variable experience from game to game, especially given how little damage these do. I have to say the guns are not bad though. It's 120mm Bofors guns that you find on a number of the British destroyers as well, and also, of course, the Tier 7 Pan-Asian destroyer and the Błyskawica. So they are relatively nice destroyer guns, even on this Tier 6 ship. They've got 19mm of HE penetration, so IFHE is not necessary in order to get damage off superstructures, but you could, with 120mm, take IFHE in order to get up to 25mm, which would give you access to the major armor zones on some cruisers. But overall, my feeling is it's not really worth it. In fact, if I had the mod working, apparently it's not been updated, but the little Kraken symbol mod that lets you look at your captain skills in games, I could show you what's on this test captain. No AFT, but I did take BFT. That's something else. These all have rather short ranges. It's 9.9 versus 10 kilometers for the torpedo, so I can't even shoot quite as far as I can launch torpedoes. Anyway, this is actually good matchmaking. There is a carrier in play, but it's a Tier 6 carrier, so it's not going to be too bad. The fact this is a standard game means I don't really have to play around the caps too much either, which is I think going to be a good thing. I don't really think these are amazing cap contesters. They do have decent stealth for it, but the lack of smoke with which to make any kind of clean break, and especially if there's carriers in play, you know, it's a really risky proposition at that point. It's not really a thing I would do myself. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Also, I might have a round in the Öland after this, but I might not. Partly I'm recording this quite late, but also I've got a weird thing growing in my mouth, which is one of the things that naturally my brain's been conjuring up all kinds of doom and gloom and disaster. But yeah, I have been to see a doctor, and you know, they went, oh, that's weird, come back if it's, you know, not gone away, if it's still growing, and it's still been growing. So that's a thing I'm going to do, is go back and see a doctor again, and hopefully they'll determine exactly what manner of weird thing it is, and then I won't just be vaguely unspecifiedly worrying about all the kind of possible things of gloom and doom. But the annoyance is that it's now big enough, it's like on the inside of my front lip, and the annoyance is that it's now big enough to catch on my teeth when I'm speaking. So yeah, now I can't exactly smoke and disengage here, and I've lost one of my torpedo things already. It doesn't really do well as just a gunboat, none of them do. I was kind of hoping the destroyers would back off far enough for me to, you know, that T-61 just kept pace with me and lost most of their health in the process. If you speed boost, they can get up to a decent speed, but the speed boost doesn't seem to last for a tremendously long time or anything. And certainly having lost one of my torp launchers this early is quite the annoyance. So yeah, stuff like the Shinonome, I think I actually just about outspot that, but you know, he was able to drop smoke. The T-61 could have dropped smoke, and that actually would have been beneficial for me, because then I would have been able to get unspotted. But no, like I said, they just kept pace and lost even more health than I did. So I've used one heal already though. I've gotten a bit of health back, and I can get a bit more, but you can see what I mean when I say it's a pretty weak heal. It really isn't any amazingly effective thing, particularly. You know what? Let's just open fire at this for attacker. The Devonshire will be as well. Of course, now he's turned, my torps have all missed, despite their speed. One thing I haven't tried yet is torp acceleration, and that's probably a pretty viable skill, even with this tier 6. Oh, Shinonomi's firing at me, that's cheeky. And also a bit painful, because, you know, the Japanese destroyer guns have pretty nasty alpha. It's just the rate of fire that's lacking. The 127 mils anyway, not the 100 mils, which go pew 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 pew. Yeah, that's a completely accurate description of what they sound like. Right, so that T-61's dead. I've done basically no damage. This game is kind of, I don't know. And this is a situation where, yeah, the heal is kind of useful, but you don't quite have the rate of fire to be a particularly massive threat to enemy destroyers, and you can take such a lot of damage in the process. So although the heal will keep you alive, just because the heal isn't a super strong heal by any stretch of the imagination, you can, even just encountering a single destroyer and trying to take them down, even a Japanese destroyer, they can hurt you enough that you'll have lost such a significant chunk of health that you then really can't afford to open fire much after that. And that's the point where having no smoke really does become a liability, especially if there's a carrier in play, because you just become easy meat. So this is the classic destroyer problem of, well, torpedo destroyer problem anyway, of you've won the flank and now everything that's left is running away. And not that there was much here, it was 2 cruisers and 2 destroyers, so I can't even just about, like, with the amount of time it takes these shells to get there, even though this is technically within range, I don't think these would actually have a chance of hitting. And also, this turret arrangement on the tier 6 is kind of awkward. But then, much like the Friesland, both the tier 10s have only got 1 turret, 2 turrets apiece rather. But they are obviously much faster firing. Right, I'm just hoping that this Pensacola is like I'm going to shoot at other ships. The fact I'm having to show hideous amounts of broadside to get all of my turrets on angle is not going to bite me in the ass. I think this is one of the reasons why this ship in particular isn't especially an effective gunboat, is you need to show a reasonable amount of angle. You know, you're giving someone a good 45 degrees of your hull angled to shoot at, which makes for a much bigger target than if you're dead on. But you do have the advantage, of course, of if you're in a situation where you're kiting away while 2/3 of your firepower is facing behind you. So it's a bit situational. But in this kind of scenario, yeah. Although in this kind of scenario, in fact, we are just massively winning. And we had someone die from doing too much team damage as well. I was actually streaming a bit with Clyde earlier. Well, I say streaming a bit. I was on his stream as a guest a bit. And we were mentioning, and Mr. McCavity dropped in to watch as well, that or was he actually there playing for a bit? Or was it somebody else? No, my brain's just mush today. Can't remember. But yeah, basically discussing how it feels like there's been quite a lot of really one-sided games, and this has not been a completely one-sided game, but yeah, it's hardly been just like a Herculean Titanic struggle for victory. It's still been a fairly easy victory, and I didn't really get to do much. But like I said, the perils of recording live. In some ways this is going to be more true to the average experience. Although I'm not really sure it shows off what the ship is good at, but I've, like I said, just not had a game yet. I'm not even quite sure I've super duper figured out exactly what this ship is great at, because just the nature of the torpedoes means that you're never going to do that much damage, and unlike ye olden days, you're not going to stack up masses of flooding damage necessarily either. Yeah, he's right in the corner. So we might get some very sneaky, might get some damage out of them. Let's go to some AP, or is he turning? Well, let's try some AP. Let's try this 120 mil AP for flavour. See how it does. Also, he's busily going for the Swedish, so that's fine. So the AP seems to have decent penetration for being 120 mil. I don't think these guns are spectacularly different from any of the other existing Bofors 120 mil guns that we have in the game. So the guns aren't really in any way the new thing of this line. It's definitely a gimmick line though. What's that? HE Citadel. Okay. With just my normal 19 mil of penetration. Yeah, it's undoubtedly a gimmick line. I mean, there's not really any arguing otherwise. I'm definitely not sold on the idea of smokeless destroyers though. Not while carriers are a thing. It just leaves it completely in the hands of chance whether you're going to have an okay game or not. Whether or not you are going to get stuck with a carrier that decides to go after you, because destroy AA these days, for the most part, is never going to be enough of a deterrent. There's very, very few destroyers, whereas that can boast that kind of a power. Whereas in the old days, at least the US destroyers certainly could with their defensive and the old manual AA skill. And there were even still some other destroyers with dual-purpose main batteries besides that could also benefit massively from that. Was it what was the other skill? There was another skill that also benefited destroyers more than regular ships, and I can't remember what it was now. Was it BFT gave more of a boost, or am I completely wrong? Or maybe it was manual AA itself. I don't know. Anyway, like I say, my brain is mush. 28k damage, all guns. It was okay. A couple of planes shot down. Not terribly exciting. Tell you what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little experiment with torp acceleration. I will swap, I don't know, maybe Adrenaline Rush. And well, also you get to see the captain skills I was using there. But yeah, I'll do a quick, jump cut edit, and you'll never know. You'll never know. So here we are with torp acceleration and now 8 kilometer torp. So you've still got good 2 kilometer drop and 70 knots. But what we're going to do is we're going to plonk this captain in Öland. And yeah, I'll take that for a spin. My mouth's, fine-ish for the time being. On a purely cosmetic note, there's one thing I do want to also point out. The perma camos are kind of rubbish. Looks like someone hired a painter to do the job that they found a business card for in a phone box somewhere, and who operates out of a rusty white van. And this one's a bit better, but it's kind of, I don't know. But on the other hand, I suppose it's like, camouflage for different solar waters than the North Atlantic, but still, I don't know. It's not very striking, is it? It doesn't at least look as slapdash. The Smerlands is okay. That's a bit cleaner looking. And the Holland is kind of similar, but more of a light grey. So those two aren't bad, but the tier 6 one is especially messy looking. Anyway, so we had, I think, 12 kilometer torps. I don't know. Anyway, 81 knots. So we'll see how we do with even faster torpedoes. Swedish ticklers, and these ones vibrate. Yeah, that's not really it's not really a double entendre at that point, or an innuendo. That's you know, all subtleties just gone out the window. Well, at least no massive queue this time, which is nice, but it looks like we're going to get a... Oh, no carrier. Okay, well, that's a boon. I'll take it. And the matchmaking is also otherwise not bad. We have Seattle with a radar. And the Chengmu might also have radar. And otherwise, yeah, this is okay. I don't necessarily want to get into a massive gunfight with the Benham or the Chengmu, however, with those US 5-inch guns. Although amusingly, there was a game earlier on stream where it was an enemy Benham, and that was me and my Z46, and I, full of bravado, decided I was going to tackle them whilst the Hydro was going. And whilst they did try and drop torpedoes on me whilst we were both in this cap circle, they didn't once use their guns. So I basically just got a 3 kill out of it. So this is the 2 turret arrangement, but we have, at least with the rear turret, a full 360 degrees of rotation, although it's not a particularly fast rotation. I'm not sure about the front turret. Let's see if we can bring that around. Our stealth is a little bit better as well, 5.7, but it's not markedly... Yeah, okay, the front turret doesn't have the full rotation. It's not markedly improved. I have played like one game this previously, but I just didn't completely... you know, I blanked on whether the front turret did have 360 degrees or not. Anyway, so in this circumstance, I think I'm happy enough to try giving capping a go. I'm not quite as stealthy as, I think, any of these actually, but I'm not that far off, and the caps are big enough that I can at least have a go. And there's no blankets of long-range radar or planes to worry about, so my lack of smoke isn't necessarily a huge deal. But I might have to try and point myself away for the purposes of making a quick getaway. The gun angles actually seem rather better on this than the Västerås. Now here's where the extra torque range might have come in a bit more useful. It's like 9.6 is actually pretty decent given my concealment range, but at this tier, of course, let's just try a random drop over towards the edge of the cap. At this tier, there's a far greater prevalence of radar, so it's less of a comfort zone than you know might think, but at the same time, the extra stealth is and the extra speed of the torpedoes is you know, it's a good combination in those circumstances where you can get close enough and don't have to worry about getting spotted. So I guess I'm just kind of sitting here until something happens. I think these are going to run out of range. Yeah, just about. The drop angles aren't nearly as good on this, but they're not completely awful. But yeah, it's still a little bit awkward. I'll at least have a fairly quick reload on these torps. So let's. Oh, there's the Benham. It's actually got a very slightly worse thing than me apparently. Right, time to pop the speed boost and not accidentally use my heal. I've done that a couple of times because normally you'd see heal on T and the speed boost is, you know, but yeah. Oh, also this has, you know, defensive. I think that the regular tier 10 has a defensive as well, but I can't remember offhand if it... Oh, yep, bye-bye Rune. I can't remember offhand if the... Oh, this is awkward as I'm turning. And he's out of his smoke, which is also awkward. What was I saying? Yeah, I can't remember if it gets the radar in place of a defensive. The kind of premium version. Right, I'm really hoping he backs into his smoke and I'm able to, you know, I might as well get a bit of damage out of it while I'm here. Still not an amazing rate of fire, and this is with BFT. Right, there we go. Let's pop a heal. Maneuver out the way, and my torps are going to be nearly back as well. Really, I don't know why he came out the smoke like that. It was not what I was expecting. Well, the rune kill was nice, but it was a low health rune. And I'm fairly certain it's the Venom that has the radiolocation marker on me, so I can't really sit completely still unless I face a wave of torpedoes. Oh, he's bugged out. Okay, that's good. I'm going to continue my turn even though it takes me out of the cap because I want to get pointed around forwards, and I don't want to make that turn in front of the Jean Bart just in case the Venom has put out a wave of torpedoes in that direction. That would be a really bad time to get caught broadside in the middle of a turn. Right, that would have needed a lot more lead, although they might have run out of steam before then. Not that they are steam-powered torps, of course, but you know what I mean. The good thing about having the quick reload is even without the benefit of Adrenaline Rush, I still don't have to wait too long for my torps to come back for another pop. Ooh, there they are. Ooh, turn in, turn in. Oh, no, no, no! Oh, rat bag. It went a bit wrong. Alright, don't open fire. It's tempting, but don't. Yeah. The rudder response is good, but don't expect an amazing turning radius. Anyway, the Venom's down, at least, and I can get a bit more health back, but that was not a thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to eat that torpedo. But the fact that I'm alive and the Venom isn't is good. The Venom is a very dangerous opponent in terms of just, you know, even the fear factor of my teammates alone. Battleship players tend to get a bit leery when there's a Venom around for some reason. Something about the constant walls of torpedoes coming in their direction tends to make them want to run away. Don't know why. Right, we'll try another drop on the Jean Bart. We're going to have to get rather closer to compensate for... Well, I'm going to bleed a bunch of speed making the turn to make the drop, basically. And it's possible that with a Jean Bart speed boost it might even be a wasted attempt anyway. Right, let's get his heal back. Make the drop. The base speed of these is not brilliant, but the speed boost at least tops it up quite nicely. Right, there's the Asashio. Is the Chungmu dead? Yes, the Chungmu is dead. And let's actually get a speed boost going as well. There, Seattle is alive and kicking, but again, a game which we are winning so far very easily. I just think I can be confident in saying that there's a quite low probability we will lose. We would have to throw really hard. Just based on the numbers of ships we have. Oh, well, I don't know if my torps would have... Oh no, they would have run out of range. Never mind. So yeah, they're a bit oddball, really. You can't say, oh, they have amazing guns. You can't say, oh, they have amazing torps. At least at high tiers, the AA is decent, but of course, that's only going to be tier 8 and above, really. Here's this Japanese HE doing nasty things to my ship. And for this kind of situation, you know, once you're in, you're in. The only thing you can really do is potentially try and hold fire and run away, but once you commit to, you know, a fight with another destroyer, you can't just pop a smoke. But if I kill this Asashio, and even if I die in the process, there we go. Might well be worth it. It's the last enemy destroyer, and it's another kill, even if it's a very cheap one. But I am now out of heals, and bam, yes. Yet another game in which I really didn't get to do much with the torpedoes. So, bear in mind, you know, this is the first versions of the ships. I don't think they'll come out exactly like this. I think the average damage numbers might just end up being way too low. I don't know if it's going to involve maybe a little bit of a buff to torpedo damage, or maybe the torpedo detection. A buff to the heal would certainly be nice. The tier 6 could certainly use some nicer AA going for it. Maybe a slightly faster rate of fire. They're never going to be gunboats. They just don't have the barrel count for it necessarily. But having said that, you know, Friesland has that ridiculous rate of fire. But Friesland gets a smoke. So, yeah, as a gimmick, I can't necessarily see this being tremendously popular. And yeah, the torpedo speed is really attractive until you realise that once the torps get there, they do barely any damage at all. Especially considering that low number, you know, doesn't even take into account torpedo belts. Your 10,000 damage torpedo in the tier 10, you know, if that strikes the belt of a Yamato, for example, that's going to be less than 5,000 damage. Because it's, what, 55% on the Yamato? That's the extreme example. That's one of the best torpedo belts in the game. But yeah, you see what I mean? It's like you're in a Sims with particularly speedy torpedoes. Nobody is scared of the Sims torpedoes, really. So this is just about done. I think we might once again skip forward through the magic of editing and see what the results screen says. Well, bye-bye saltfish. And there goes the match. So, in fact, that was the person that killed me as well. Yeah, not a particularly impressive result, especially for a tier 8. But I guess because I got the killing blow on, was it both destroyers? Did I? Yeah, I got the Benham, didn't I? No, it was the Rune I got the killing blow on. That seems a weirdly high score. I don't know why I'm top of the team for so little damage. I've got one cap flag, one defense flag, one torpedo hit, handful of shell hits, somehow top of the team. Go figure. Just goes to show it's not all about the damage when it comes to the score, but a bit more would have been nice, you know? I'll probably do a separate video at some point looking at either the Harland or the Smoland, and hopefully I can actually get a good game for both of those, or one of those at least, because they'll be fairly similar. But in the meantime, you can let me know what you think of these in the comments below, whether you're looking forward to them or whether you think it's just a not terribly great gimmick line, but, you know, bear in mind, still work in progress, worth pointing out again. And, well, if you have enjoyed this, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.